It is, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the biggest political battle of 2024, a mega showdown that is going to decide which way America's fate goes. Tonight, the stage in Pennsylvania will witness two faces, two personalities that are starkly different from each other. A contrast that will play out after weeks of preparation. It's the first and possibly the only debate that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would have before the November presidential elections. Here in India, it can be watched tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. IST. Now, considering that the Trump versus Biden debate gave ammunition to Biden critics and eventually that led to his withdrawal from the race, the big debate night presents an opportunity for Kamala to drive home the point that she has the potential to stop a Trump comeback, an opponent who has had a history of using racial and sexual innuendos for political gains. While issues like abortion, illegal immigration, and inflation are expected to dominate the debate, the rules of this debate are interesting and different from what we saw in 2020. A 90-minute debate that will have no audience in the room. Candidates will be given a pen, paper, and a water bottle. No opening remarks, no pre-written notes allowed. Trump and Kamala will be given 2 minutes for every answer and a minute extra for follow-up or clarification. Closing remarks will be for 2 minutes. Questions have not been shared beforehand. And most importantly, the microphone of candidate who is not speaking will be muted to avoid overlapping and ensure a dignified debate. The two will not be allowed to speak with anyone, including their staff, during commercial breaks. So clearly, it's lights, camera, and action, or perhaps fireworks, in this race to the White House. To talk more on this, on the broadcast, I'm joined by Ray Locker. He's a journalist and author. I'm also joined by Spencer Critchley, political analyst and author, and Narender Reddy. He is a Republican representing the Georgia State Assembly. Good evening. Namaskar to all three of you. Ray, let me start with you. It's the big presidential debate night. And let me tell you, all of you honestly, that it's not just the Americans, but people like me and other people who follow American politics closely, who are really excited and looking forward to seeing this debate and what really happens. But Ray, get us a sense of how, what sort of excitement is there? What are people expecting tonight? And what are they really expecting from Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, obviously, the Democrats are hoping that Harris can show that she's up to meeting the challenge of facing Trump face to face, that she's composed and calm in the face of what are expected to be multiple false attacks from Trump. On the other hand, you have Trump partisans who hope that he can stay within himself and stick to the plot, which is something that he's had a hard time doing. And for those in the middle, they're hoping to get some kind of sense of where these candidates stand to the extent that they don't know already and help them make their decisions. I'm not very optimistic about that because I've watched a lot of these debates and they continue to devolve over time. Certainly the ones in 2016 and 2020 involving Trump were that way. I mean, I think we have to go back to like the 1970s to see a dignified debate between two presidential candidates.
Okay. Spencer, let me come to you, and I want to talk about the wordplay that has been happening ahead of this debate. Kamala Harris's team has been saying that there is preparation that has been going on. Trump's team has been saying that he's previewing what he has to say. So preparation versus preview gives a completely different and a stark contrast to how both the teams are preparing. Would that at all intimidate Kamala Harris, considering the fact that she is facing off with Donald Trump, a 7-time debater, for the first time?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, Spencer, this is for you.
Yes, I'm sorry that my audio was breaking up a little bit there. I think that we're really looking at people who come from two fundamentally different and opposed worldviews, including the way people look at what a debate is. Kamala Harris comes from the traditional worldview of liberal democracy, as has traditionally been found in liberal democracies around the world for the past couple of centuries. And that involves an exchange of ideas and a debate over facts and logic and attempting to score points on content and substance. Whereas Donald Trump essentially is entirely theatrical in his approach to these things. And his whole approach is to generate sensation and appeal to people at the emotional level. The challenge that Kamala Harris faces, coming from that tradition of liberal democratic debate, is matching and containing Trump on the theatrical level while also coming across to the at least 50% of Americans who still value substance as a substantial person who could credibly lead the most powerful nation in the world.
And do you think, therefore, she's going to be talking more about, issues such as abortion and reproductive rights more than she would talk about perhaps illegal immigration or even the border issue?
I think she will want to lead, first of all, on that emotional level, because ultimately politics is and always has been led by emotional connections. Even in that liberal democratic tradition that I'm describing, we often remember the most brilliant orators of history like Abraham Lincoln, or going back to Pericles in Athens. And so I think she's shown some strength there in, for example, boiling down the defense of democracy, which can seem like an overwhelming issue to many voters, to the word freedom. And I think she's shown a great deal of strength in emphasizing just a couple of very simple emotion-led messages, such as freedom. And so when she talks about something like abortion policy, which rapidly becomes very complicated, if she leads with the concept of freedom, then she can connect with a wide range of voters, not just Democrats, but independents and the many Republicans who are very reluctant to vote for Trump.
Okay. Narender Reddy, many would say that when it was Joe Biden as the Democrat candidate, it seemed like a smooth ride for Donald Trump. After the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, it was even smoother for him, or so it seemed. But now with Kamala Harris entering the fray, do you think that Donald Trump has had to sort of, pull his socks up and be more aggressive in this entire race, which we have seen in the past few weeks?
For example, this time,
I think Trump appears to
what
be at a
happens is
loss.
Kamala Harris
He
is
was
going to
counting.
focus.
Spencer, I'll come to you. This was for Mr.
Excuse
Reddy.
me, I'm sorry, audio issues.
Sorry. In
Go
this
ahead, Mr.
debate,
Reddy.
mostly Kamala Harris will be very aggressive on two issues: gun violence and the reproductive freedom to women. These issues are she's going to attack again and again on Trump, and also, but she will not talk about economy. She will not talk about the border security. These things she will be totally avoiding. About the chances of Trump becoming more were really there when Biden was there. But even now, I think Trump has a bigger chance of winning. When the leftist media and liberal media says they both are doing tough, that means Trump is leading nationally. And also, in the beginning, it looked like that Kamala Harris has a lead. The reason being, all of a sudden, the media started projecting her as like a very experienced leader, very efficient leader. But slowly it is coming down because more and more people are knowing about her. Her competence is not that great. And also it is almost like 2 months since has been nominated. She did not address any press conference. A person who is capable of leading a major country like the United States of America should be able to handle the press. If she cannot handle the American press, it will be very difficult for her to be dominant as a world leader if she gets elected. So in my thinking, Trump is leading. At the same time, they both will be aggressive in tonight's debate because they both want to score points, because they both want to impress the voters. Particularly, Kamala Harris has a bigger need to impress and win this debate.
Spencer, respond to that. One of the things that a lot of voters, a lot of Americans have been saying in this entire campaign is the fact that we know very little about Kamala Harris. She's been the vice president, perhaps, in the shadow of President Joe Biden, and now suddenly she's become this Democrat candidate. We know less about her. We want to know more about her. Would this be considered an opportunity then by Kamala Harris to reach out to the last voter in the queue to make sure that she or he knows who Kamala Harris is and what she stands for?
Me?
Yes, I think this
You're
is a
absolutely
crucial
right,
opportunity.
This is for Spencer. Mr. Reddy, this is for Spencer.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
this is a crucial opportunity because as media has fragmented over the past decades at an ever increasing rate in recent years, it's become increasingly difficult for a candidate to capture the attention of most of the electorate. Donald Trump has shown a great deal of talent in doing that because if he has a talent, I personally think he has almost none, but if he does have one, he's a very skilled entertainer. And like a pop star, he's very good at seizing attention. Normal politicians these days struggle to do that the way it was possible when there were far fewer media choices. So the audience for tonight's debate will probably be huge, in part because it's a huge entertainment event. And so this is an opportunity for Kamala Harris to introduce herself to many more people. All vice presidents face the disadvantage that they tend to get far less attention during their terms than the president does. And she faces the double disadvantage of running such a short campaign. So yes, I agree. This is a crucial opportunity for her.
Ray, when we talk about Kamala Harris and how she has been reaching out to the voters across the country, one of the things that is key is what people say about how she's not talking about specific policies and specific vision that she has in a particular area, say the economy or just, illegal immigration. She says a lot of general stuff. Do you think this could be the time that she should be specifying what her economic policies are and how she would take the country forward in terms of, if she becomes the president and the policy making?
Yeah, I think we'll see some of that. She also has a record with the Biden-Harris administration that I think a lot of people would be proud of. This country has withstood the pandemic better than most industrialized nations in the world. Our inflation rate is lower. Our unemployment rate is low. By contrast, Trump totally mishandled the pandemic, which exacerbated a variety of economic problems and led to massive unemployment that this administration has had to fix. And I think she'll talk about that. And she'll talk about how President Biden signed an executive order on the border, how President Biden and Democrats agreed with congressional Republicans on a very tough border bill that Trump sabotaged for some.
Ray, I'm sorry
yes.
for interrupting you here, but this is exactly what people are saying, that Kamala Harris has only been talking about what Joe Biden has done so far. What is it that she's getting to the table? What is her own independent thinking on a particular matters? A lot of them say that she's only going to take forward Biden's policies.
Well, many of Biden's policies have been successful, and she'll specify the differences between those and what she wants to do going forward. Whereas Trump, I mean, you want to talk about specifics. How many positions has he taken on abortion? Like a zillion. I mean, he's all over the map. He's saying whatever he thinks is going to work. And so by any standard, when you look at what Trump has done as president and as a candidate and compare it with what Harris has said and done as vice president and as a candidate, I mean, there's really not much of a difference. I mean, there's not much legitimate criticism of her, except for this. She needs to talk to the media more. She needs to be doing it in a way where she doesn't look afraid, because kind of running around and only talking to a few specific people in limited doses is working to her detriment. And I think she's capable of being more specific, and she needs to do that. And that's probably going to have to start tonight.
Okay. Interesting that you talked about abortion and, what Trump has been saying on it. I'm not a Trump fan, but, just the fact that he said that he's not going to be banning abortion during this campaign, says something. Whether or not he actually implements it, we'll have to see if he wins the election. But Narendra Reddy, one of the things that goes against Donald Trump is also how he keeps bringing his female opponents down in terms of the kind of misogynist comments he's made. And why would he want to make it? This time around, when he's fighting Kamala Harris, he's following the same model perhaps that he followed with Hillary Clinton, commenting on her looks, saying, I look better than her. Last time around with Hillary Clinton, he said she doesn't have the stamina. I mean, why do you need to stoop to such remarks? Why can't you just stick to policies and your vision and what you want to do for the country?
I totally agree with what you're saying, and Trump shouldn't be making those personal comments. He has a lot of accomplishments during his previous term, and we should be talking about those accomplishments. And also, people trust his efficiency more than they could trust Kamala Harris' efficiency in dealing with the international problems, at the same time, local problems. Look at the economy. Today, our home mortgage rates have been doubled in the last 3.5 years. People cannot afford homes anymore. He should be talking about those things. Totally should stop talking or insulting his opponents. That won't work. Actually, that is what a lot of women voters turning away against him. But so he still has time to mend his ways and be disciplined at the podium tonight. That will attract a lot of women voters as well as moderate voters who did not make that decision yet. This election is going to be independent voters. They are the one who are going to make a difference in this election, who is going to win. So he needs to attract and address those independent voters.
Spencer Critchley, when it comes to illegal immigration, it is a topic of huge debate. Several debates have happened, and all of us have talked about it on this show as well. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, the very thing that is her roots, her origin, whether it's Indian and African American, perhaps could go against her, isn't it? The fact that people would think, oh, you're an immigrant yourself. What would you do about illegal immigrants? You're going to be softer on them.
That will certainly be the perception of a minority of Americans. It's a minority that is far too large. But I think it's still true that most Americans see a person like Kamala Harris succeeding and find it inspiring. It's the fulfillment, really, of the original promise of the United States as a pluralistic, liberal democracy that's a civic nation, not an ethnic nation, meaning you're an American because you support the Constitution, not because of any particular ethnic or religious background. And that really is the most inspiring thing about the United States. In combination with that, she's a very successful person who has a record that she can point to. And it is a record that does turn out to be appealing to a great many Americans. The Trump campaign is trying to portray her, of course, as a dangerous, somehow both communist and fascist at the same time. But they do that essentially with all of their opponents on the left. And in fact, her record is a combination of liberal policies in the sense of liberals leaning towards the left and conservative policies, one might argue, when it comes to enforcing the law, as a former chief law enforcement officer for the state of California, for example.
Okay. Ray Locker, if you look at the latest opinion polls, there's very slight difference between the two. In fact, there's a neck-and-neck competition, and it's only making the presidential debate even more exciting for all of us. But then what's working for Donald Trump? What is it that is making him move forward? What is it that is clicking with the American voter?
Well, is he really moving forward? His poll standing is basically the way it's been over the last 9 years. He's stuck at around 47, 48%. Harris, in many polls, slightly ahead by maybe 2 points, with a small smattering of undecided. In 2016, Trump got 46% of the vote. In 2020, he got 46.9% of the vote. He lost the popular vote both times. During his presidency, he never polled above 50% in approval ratings ever. And so this is somebody who's not really moving forward. He's sticking in the same place. And there are people, many people, the majority of Americans who don't like him, and many don't want to vote for him again. And they're uncomfortable or uncertain about his opponent. In this case, it's now Harris. So that puts more pressure on her to show that she is an acceptable alternative. And I think many Democrats feared that Joe Biden would not be that acceptable alternative this year. And that's why they forced him out of the race. So it's up to her to make people feel more comfortable with her
Okay.
and put her above 50%.
But Ray, that's what happened last time around as well. Last time around when Hillary and Trump were there, Hillary was, moving forward. She was leading the opinion polls, and then we all saw what happened. Should we at all go by these polls and the reasons behind them then?
Well, look, a poll is a snapshot in time. It's not a predictor. It depends on who's doing the poll and what people say at that particular time. That's why it's very important to conduct polls in a limited amount of time with as many people as possible. If you conduct it over a longer period of time, events can skew the results. So it's not a predictor, it's a snapshot.
Okay. Quickly then, before I wrap this discussion up, let me ask all of you my one last question, and I want quick answers from all of you. I'd like to start with you, Narender Reddy. There's, of course, a lot of advice that must have been given to both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris ahead of these debate. But if there's one thing you would like to say to them before they head into the debate, what would it be?
Kamala Harris has to look natural what she is. She cannot give a artificial expressions whatever she was coached in the debates. Because any person who comes as straightforward and honest with the real expressions and the real opinions, they will score. With Trump, the problem with Trump would be, I hope he would not be tricked into jumping into unnecessarily rambling and all that and making personal comments in the debate, because Kamala Harris is going to provoke him as much as possible, because that's what she's been trained in this debate camp last 1 week. So Trump has to maintain his discipline, for God's sake, one time at least, and just talk about his accomplishments and his plans for the future, how to contain this illegal immigration, how to secure the borders, how to take this inflation down once again.
Those are issues that need to be talked about. But Spencer Critchley, what would you say to both candidates?
I think actually Kamala Harris should continue doing what she's doing. In the very compressed time frame she's had to work with, I think she's been running one of the best campaigns I've seen. It ranks with the Obama campaigns. And I think that a lot of that is the authentic emotional connection that she's leading with, backed by substance, which was typical of the Obama campaigns. With Trump, I mean, there's no point offering Trump any advice. He seems completely impervious to it, and he just follows his impulse of the moment. And I would have to say, if he were to suddenly develop a conscience, the best thing he could possibly do for the United States is withdraw from the race, because clearly his plan is to turn the United States into a country much more like Hungary, with an authoritarian leadership. And he has demonstrated that, throughout his life, that he's a criminal through his behavior, and now he's been judged a criminal in a court of law. This really comes down to a contest between democracy and anti-democracy.
Okay, so you would advise Donald Trump to completely withdraw from the race. Ray, what about you?
Well, I'd say to Harris, stay calm and stay focused. And to Trump, I don't think I can do any better than Spencer. I think he should drop out.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Nobody is withdrawing. We'll have an exciting race ahead, but let's all look forward to what both of them have to say in that big presidential debate. Thank you very much to all of you gentlemen, Ray Locker, Narender Reddy and Spencer Critchley. Thank you very much for joining us on Global Mirror.